Welcome to the 13th session of Samkhya101. This is our last session of the current course, which was an introduction to Samkhya. I am devoting one slide on what is, as I understand the structure of his book. Chapter 1, he gave a extensive blueprint of the concepts he is going to cover, starting with what is the Atyant Purusharth, the human objective, effort, absolute effort, which is liberation, self-realization, discriminative knowledge that I am different from my mind. So what is called Purush and Prakriti. Purush is my me, the consciousness. Prakriti is raw state of matter. And as we are in this world, me, I am covered with a shell of mind, and that closest instrument is what is called buddhi, what Patanjali would call a chitta. So that instrument and me coming together is my bondage, nature of bondage. And these are two essential basic entities, Purush and Prakriti. Prakriti is the raw state of matter, and all our inner subtle instruments, as well as this visible gross body, and all the objects that we see in the universe, they are basically made of matter. And of course, as a human being, we, or even animals, birds, we also have an ability to transform the material objects, like we build houses, all kinds of gadgets, and all kinds of other objects. So, a number of objects are man made, and all other things that are not made by us are made by what is called Ishwar in this particular book. If you remember the schematic diagram, I have been showing different things they are derived from matter. The chapter 2 was related to the lower arm, which was in the red color in that schematic diagram, which are basically our instruments. They are 13 in number, starting with buddhi. The next is ahankar, which is storage device, then manas, and 5 organs for incoming knowledge, and 5 organs to activate or influence the objects outside of us. So 5 organs for knowledge, 5 organs for action, and 3 of them subtle, buddhi, ahankar, and manas. So these are 13 instruments, and chapter 2 went into detail about that. Chapter 3 talked about the upper arm, which is from the ahankar. There is a 1:5 transition, 5 subtle elements, and then 5 gross elements, Panchabhut. And those 5 gross elements are what gives rise to the objects that are amenable to our 5 senses. So that upper arm is what gross body and all the visible universe is made of. He basically talks Prakriti is the primary material cause, and the universe is made by an efficient cause called as Ishwar. Ishwar is, he said, Sarvavit Sarvakarta. So he is all knowing, because you have to have the knowledge before you create something. So knowledge is to know a thing as it is, and all the millions, billions of things in the universe, if we know them exactly, accurately, then we have the knowledge about it. Of course, we are limited. We don't know everything, and we don't know everything very accurately to the last uh, bare minimum point. But Ishwar is somebody, a consciousness that knows everything, because that entity has given rise to the universe. So he has knowledge to the fullest extent, and he is also the maker. So serve with means he is all knowing, and serve karta means he is the omnipotent. He doesn't need anybody's help to give rise to the universe that we see. So Ishwa is the efficient cause for subtle as well as gross objects. Subtle in the sense our buddhi, our ahankar, our manas, these subtle instruments are also not made by us, made by buddhi and even our body frame as such. But we are, as a human being and other species, we are able to transform the gross objects from one form to another. Like a carpenter makes a table out of wood. So certain gross objects are made by souls. Ishvara is the efficient cause for all the subtle objects and, and various other gross objects that are not made by us. So that all is covered in chapter 3. So basically, matter and its transformation. This transformation into subtle parts in the chapter 2, in the gross parts in chapter 2, and the role of Ishwar in that. Chapter 4 was all these concepts explained to us through simple metaphors, analogies, stories, etc. So nothing new, but the stories help one to understand certain things. Chapter 5, which we did last week, is the related concepts which have somehow been misunderstood. So all kinds of misunderstandings, inaccuracies and distortions, they are removed by Kapil, the author of Sankhya. And it ended with, you remember, which I emphasized that statement, Samadhi Sushupti Moksheshu Brahmarupta. Of course, overall structure of the book is, the book started with Athati with Dukhatyant Nivetti Atyant Purushat. So there is an absolute effort that can take us away, absolutely away from all kinds of pain and suffering. So that Atyant Purushat, that absolute effort, is now brought in here towards the end of chapter 5 when he says Samadhi, Sushupti, Moksheshu, Brahmarupta. So that moksha is absolute liberation, and that will be void of any pain and suffering, because then I am having a taste of what is Ishwar's characteristic, namely Brahmarupta. Like the example given, not by Kapil but elsewhere, is given is iron piece is put in a hot furnace, red hot furnace, then that black iron also becomes red hot. So in the affinity of the furnace, the iron piece acquires the characteristics of the furnace, namely by virtue of the heat. So that is what is Brahmarupta. In these states, I am so close to that Ishwar Brahm that I acquire his characteristics. Now the chapter 6, which is the last chapter, last session on Samkhya 101, this is devoted on mainly on liberation, moksha and mukti and what it is, and all the related philosophical concepts. So let's go through it. So today we are looking at a summary of chapter 6. It begins with, first section is who am I? What is this me, so to say? Of course, I am that Purush, the soul, and that he is emphasizing with some sort of general awareness people have. Even common man has an awareness that I am. Something like I exist. That's our consciousness. So that's what I am, truly speaking. Something deep feeling that I am. So such an awareness cannot be denied. Everybody has that awareness. And in day-to-day usage, we do say, my body, my mind, as if these are my instruments and I am the owner of these instruments of body and mind. So this is a genitive use, what is called Shashti Vibhakti in Sanskrit language. This is very commonly used. So that also relates to somebody who is owning the instruments of body, the instruments of mind. And that is what truly is me, my purush, my soul, my atma. And also, there is another way to look at it because there are individuals, if not in modern times, probably in Kapil's time, there were such individuals who would say that I have achieved what was to be achieved for a human being. So Krityata, Kritya means what is required to be done, and Krit is what has been done. So what does it mean? I have done what was required to be done. So so this is somebody who has achieved all this. So that we have discussed in the previous chapter. That person is Jivan Mukta and he continues to live for some while. Probably Kapil was in that category. That's why he's trying to teach us what he has learned. Of course, we are learning through the books, but he learned exactly what is the objective given in the book of Samkhya, that self-realization, discriminatory knowledge of Purusha and Prakriti. He must have attained that status, and that's how he was able to write a book. So he is writing a book in with a sense of authority, and that is what is being mentioned here. That there are individuals who have reported this kind of a state, and when somebody says this, and there is no reason to doubt it, that means he has gone through that self-realization. So that self is me, my soul. So there is an individual in the world who says, I have seen it, I have experienced it. So I have gone through self-realization. So that is what, for me, for us as a newcomers, as a basic beginners, as a learner, we will say that is an authority. That is a Shabda Praman, so to say, testimony of a person who has seen it. He is saying that there is a Purush different from the Prakriti. And that's how the fifth chapter had ended, if you remember. The very last statement of fifth chapter was these gross objects, Panchabhut, and none of these five elements individually have consciousness and not in coming together. So those five gross elements, they individually don't have consciousness, and even they are mixed, even all kinds of permutations and combinations of those five elements cannot give rise to consciousness. Do not give it. That was his last statement in chapter 5. So that is the common thing in the world, even in modern times. We and even all fine scientists are working on matter, all kinds of material objects, but still unsolved. What is this consciousness? So this is where an authoritative statement is there from classical times. Consciousness is not a result of matter and its derivatives. Consciousness is something else. And in philosophical term, it is not even characteristic of Purush. It is Purush is inherently consciousness. The soul is inherent consciousness. So I've tried to explain it with a small light taking into the limit that light filament is zero. So the light is nothing but low light. Lamp is, what is lamp? Lamp is light itself. When I have taken the limit that it is zero. So in the same manner, what is this soul? What is consciousness? What is Purush? Purush is in the limit a singularity of a point, which is what it is, light of consciousness. So it is not that there is something which has consciousness. The Purush is consciousness itself. This in Sanskrit terminology is called Swarup. And that was Patanjali's statement. अथ योगानुशासनम who. Truth is what you are exactly. No entity. Common man also feels like I am my body, my mind. But this concept is enforced by somebody who has achieved that. Life has mission accomplished, so to say. The human objective is attained. Probably Kapil must have been in that category. And he is saying that yes, we have something called the soul, which is what pure consciousness is. And in day to day life, we go through lot of joy and pain. So that is what he's saying. Pain is caused by avidya, ignorance. This is what klesh is. Avidya, rag, dvesh, asmita, abhinivesh, etc. So what he's saying is, it is basically these klesh, the ignorance, not a thing exactly as it is, that causes pain. So in this particular sense, we are already bonded with the buddhi, and we use the buddhi in day-to-day life to acquire knowledge, take certain action, perform action. Generally, we try to gather all kinds of objects of pleasure. That is what human life is all about, or even animal or any bird, etc. We go around, we spend 24 by 7 to gather things which hopefully will give us joy, is it not? But in going through those actions, we have to go through a lot of painful hardships. So, pain is caused by avidya, and that cycle. So, we gather a lot of objects, so hardship, we enjoy them, but then that is also mixed with a lot of painful situations. And then we have to go through another set of actions to get rid of another sets of pain. So life goes on like this. It is okay for an animal or bird, but for a human being, we have to try to think how to come out of this mess, how to come out of this cyclic feature. That's what is the objective of Sankhya. So he's trying to point out pain has some universality. Pain exhibits universality. Why did the book start with Dukh Nivritti? The question is, why did he say, I want to come to a state that there is no pain? Why didn't he say, common man will say, I want to come to a state which is pleasant state. So why to get rid of dukh? Why not we say, I want to acquire all kinds of pleasures of life? Everybody wants happiness. A common man seeks happiness. But Kapil's approach is different. He is not guaranteeing you will get happiness. He is saying, if you follow my teaching, you will be void of pain. You will get away from pain. So he is justifying why he said the objective is not to get happiness but to get away from pain. How is he justifying? Let's look at it. He is saying pain has universality. For example, everybody gets hungry and everybody of hunger. This is universal pain, is it not? But if somebody says, I eat ice cream and I enjoy it, this is a joyful expression, joyful experience for an individual. Let's say he's a person A. He says, I eat ice cream of this particular flavor and I derive joy and happiness with that. But will the 7 billion people say, agree with that statement? They will hesitate. Somebody will say, I don't get enjoyment out of that flavor. I want some other flavor. I don't get ice cream. I want it apple pie. Somebody will say, no, I want alcohol, I want this. Everybody's concept of joy, pleasure, and happiness is different, is it not? But pain is universal. Everybody has gone through the pain of hunger. There is no counterpart, you can say. Everybody will enjoy a particular worldly experience. Even sex, even anything you mention, there will be many people who say, I'm not interested in it. Is it not? So that's what is. No definite cause of joy is known and it lacks universality. So it's in the worldly sense, it is nice to talk about joy, pleasure, happiness, but it is philosophically ill defined. It is not well defined, is it not? But pain is well defined. Hunger, every human being has felt the pain of hunger, is it not? Even a small child. Now he says, furthermore, even so called joy is mixed with pain, is it not? If you have, say, that person A who enjoys ice cream, he eats ice cream, one more, one more. But then at one point, that same ice cream is there in front of him, but now it is no more a source of pleasure. He will say, now I cannot eat anymore. I am fed up. If I eat one more spoon, that will be painful for me. So that same ice cream is now becoming painful for him, is it not? So not only that, sometimes you eat ice cream and you start sneezing, you have hiccups, this and that. So what seems to be joyful experience is inherently mixed with pain. Patanjali also has that statement, Sarva Vivekina. Wise people know that. Then he goes on to say, the libation is desirable, what is called Atyant Purusharth, because it is absolute absence of pain. And yes, it is not a joy, it is not worldly joy, but it is an out of the world experience, which he calls blissfulness, which is difficult to define because it is not a worldly experience, is it not? So there are certain things we cannot define it well, but he says that two things happen when we go through self-realization, we acquire that particular vivek, what is called vivek khyati. So I have discriminatory knowledge of purush and prakriti. Then I am mukta, jivan mukta, etc. And when I am really in mukta state, the moksha, that will be absolute absence of pain, and after that there will be blissfulness. Absolute absence of pain because I am no more connected to the. So the matter, the buddhi was source of joy and pain. What is joy and pain? They are modifications on my buddhi, and I begin to experience them as if it is happening to me because I am connected to my buddhi. So now this person who is liberated soul is no more bonded with the buddhi. So those joy and pain are gone. What is called sukh and dukh, the worldly joy and pain are no more there. But now this is in the domain of with that Brahm, with Ishwar. So that Ishwar is Ananda Swarup, Satchidananda Swarup, Satchit and Anand. That also we discussed towards the end of the fifth chapter. So now this liberated soul is able to taste that Anand. So there are twofold events are happening with liberation. I get away from absolute, from worldly pain forever, and also I have a taste of that absolute pleasure, so to say. This blissfulness is different from the worldly joy because worldly joy is there in connection with buddhi. I am no more connected to buddhi. Let's look at furthermore. This liberation is when the connectivity is absolutely broken. So let's understand this connectivity. So in philosophical terms, Purush is basically Asang, These are philosophical questions the layperson is asking, and Kapil is trying to convince him. He is saying now, Purush is defined in the Vedas, etc., as asanga. He is untouched by anything. Then how the hell he gets connected to Prakriti at the first? That's what is difficult to understand. So here the situation is, as a human being, though I am connected to my buddhi, but my inherent nature is not changing. But then the layperson is asking, if my inherent nature is not changing, then what is my inherent nature and why do I feel joy and pain every time? So he is saying, he's trying to explain that you are asanga. You don't get connected to anything. But you are enveloped by buddhi to avivek because now you are not having that discriminatory knowledge. That is what is our problem. We are ignorant people. We have not acquired that vivek. Now, because of that ignorance, what do I do? Whatever appears on my buddhi, I take it on myself. So, if buddhi shows a certain image, I feel good, I become joyful, I feel it. I don't borrow that. What is happening is on the screen, but I get affected. Though I am not connected to it, just like in a cinema hall, you are sitting on your chair. The cinema screen is far away, but once the cinema starts, you participate in the events that are being exhibited on the screen. You think as if it is happening to you, and you go through all kinds of swings. You are clapping, you are laughing, you are crying, all that is happening. Just take the limits that in our head is and somewhere you are an observer enveloped with a screen of buddhi or chitta and you are watching that all. You are not really connected. You are what you are, but you are just vritti sarupya mitayate. That was Patanjali's statement. The vrittis that are taking place on chitta or buddhi, you recognize, you become part of that. That is due to the avivek. So we are already bonded because we are not with vivek. We are with avivek. That's why we are there. But he's emphasizing still your inherent nature has not been compromised. Your inherent nature was Sat Chit Roop. We discussed in the last slide of chapter 5. Sat Chit Roop, is it not? So we are ever existent and we are pure consciousness. These are not our characteristics. That is what inherently we are. We are inherently immortal. We are inherently consciousness. That is what we are. But being connected to the buddhi, all those modifications have an impact on us, they affect us, and that makes us go through the swings of joy and pain. So, because we are seeking liberation, we need to understand what is our surrounding, how we have come into these circumstances. Just because we are impatient, it doesn't mean I cannot become a free bird, is it not? So, if I know my true characteristics and if I get to know it truly, I will become like that. So, that's what he's saying. This avivek is not permanent. There is a definite antidote of avivek. Niyat karan. He's saying niyat karan. Then we have tried to see it as what is that? Niyat karan is vivek. And then he has given in past example of darkness and light. So just like the room is dark, you do anything, the darkness will not disappear. There is only one way you can get rid of that darkness if you have a source of light. One and only one. Similarly, avivek and darkness, when it disappears, you don't see it. You don't see it going out of the door or window, is it not? So it is basically it is not an independent entity. Darkness is nothing but absence of light. In the same way, we are inflicted with avivek. Now, avivek is not an independent entity. Avivek is simply absence of vivek. So, if I gather that knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, avivek will disappear, is it not? Just like with a source of light, darkness disappears. So, he is trying to give us the mechanism. And once I am liberated, I am no more in need of the instruments of buddhi, etc. All these instruments are there for twofold purpose, for me to go through the bhog, the experiences, because I myself desire that, for which I did certain karma. So you have made done some effort, you have performed some karma that will bring a reward in terms of sukh and dukh, joy and pain. Is it not? So that also is made possible by buddhi. And buddhi only will help us learn the concepts of Sankhya and Yoga by Kapil and Patanjali. And if we, buddhi only will help us subdue the modifications in buddhi. Only with the practice of meditation, you will get to know that discriminatory knowledge, and that also until the last stop, you need the help and cooperation of buddhi. So I have tried to give you an example. Catches, they help you climb up the hill up till the very last step. And once you are at the summit of the hill, you will throw away the catches. Is it not? So buddhi is your instrument even for vivek khyati, even for upward and liberation. Buddhi is instrument for bhog as well as upward. But once somebody has liberated, he has attained mukti or moksha, now he doesn't need those instruments. So the connectivity is there for twofold objective, namely bhog and upwork. And once upwork has been accomplished, that liberated soul doesn't need. And if somebody said that even in upwork, even in mukti, the soul is with the instrument of buddhi to taste that blissfulness, then that is a wrong statement. So that is what Kapil is denying. If in liberated state also my buddhi, subtle instruments are with me, then naturally I will be with sukh and dukh, joy and pain. Then that liberation wouldn't be worth. So he's denying. He's saying my atyant purushat is not that. My atyant purushat, which I am teaching you, is when the soul, the purush, is absolutely disconnected from prakriti. What is the mechanism? Method is attained via Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, etc. The Sanskrit terms I translate as good as possible is hearing, then Chintan, Manan means thinking and reviewing. Like I read a book, I close the book, then I think about it. What have I heard? I try to gather what the author was trying to tell him and make a coherent picture in my mind. He has the whole picture in his mind, the speaker, the author. Now I have heard all the speaker has said. I have read all that the author has written. Now I try to reconstruct that picture in my mind. That is thinking and all. But that itself is not enough. Then we go into meditation, deep contemplation. We want to go into a blank mind and hope that Ishwar, who is Sarvit and Sarvkarta, who has all the knowledge, he will send in some flashes that will further improve my picture. So that is what we are teaching. In meditation, what happens? Some of the pieces of the puzzle are missing. Somehow you are able to fill them up. have a better understanding, the intuitive understanding, intuitive knowledge. So he is saying, the Vivek he is saying, he is telling us in his book, but he is saying if you just rely on my book, it's not enough. You have to use that as blueprint and then move forward. Because this is whole a journey, you have to traverse your own journey. Just by reading Kapil's book, you don't get self-realization. The book is about self-realization, but you have to go through that journey. Now, just this is where I say Patanjali's philosophy of yoga, his book on yoga, is expansion of a particular part of Kapil Sankhya. So this is a slide where covered what most of the yoga philosophy is about. So in the previously he said just reading is not enough. You have to think and meditate, etc. Now that's what we are starting with in this slide. This is desirable for all. Now he's saying there are three kinds of people, which he has stated earlier also: superior kind, average, and mediocre. Much less time, they take some more time, but they take huge amount of time in learning. Three categories of peoples. Then he's saying, even this class of people, even for them, just hearing is not enough. For them also to achieve Vivek Khyati, they have to go through the later steps of deep contemplation and meditation. Indeed, Patanjali's book is structured, which I tried to say in my other courses, which some of you have gone through. Patanjali Yoga is for this class of people. Patanjali's Kriya Yoga is for this class of people. And Ashtanga Yoga is for this class of people. So this is what Kapil has already mentioned. And now he briefly mentions asana. Now you want to gain Vivek Khyati, what to do? First, Sthir Sukham Asanam. This is the exact statement Kapil is using. We have discussed it previously also, I think in chapter 5 or chapter 3. And again in chapter 6. And this is Patanjali's statement, exact word. Sthir Sukham Asanam. So now Kapil is saying, you are interested in Vivek Khyati, whether you are superior, average, mediocre, whatever you are, you ought to do these things for meditation. So first take a body posture. Of course, Sthir Sukham Asanam, a unwavering, stable posture which is comfortable. And then his statement is slightly, I'm trying to search for that. Just a minute, shouldn't take long because he is interesting. Dhyan dharana. Bhadyadi tatyapi mukti. Sthir Sukham Asanam iti na niyamaha. He has added a term, wonderful. He's saying there is no hard and fast rule for a particular posture. He's giving a lot of freedom, but he's putting the necessary condition. It should be stable and comfortable posture. Then he leaves it to the practitioner to decide, So we also, in my classes, I teach Sukhasana, Siddhasana, Swastikasana, but then I say, you do what you feel like, is it not? So that is the background. Then he says, Dhyanam Nirvishyam Manaha. This is dhyan, meditation, is a state of mind when you have nothing on your mind. Your manas is not with with superimposed with any worldly object. So you are out, disconnect from worldly objects. Where therapy Vishesh? So now he's trying to tell us, now we are in with closed eyes, we are meditating. Then he gives an idea what your destination is. Your destination is self-realization. And that time, it is not that you should be seeing anything on your mind screen. So now he is saying it should not be when you are deep in meditation. He is trying to give us a hint that our day-to-day functioning is what? Is on our buddhi or chitta, some image is formed, and then I observe it. I observe it. Is that okay? So this process of observation he is trying to explain with a metaphor. This is in philosophy, they have a term, japa sphatic mani. So whenever this term comes, this is what is meaning. Japa is a particular japa kusum, a flower. And that sphatic mani is a crystal glass. So what they say is there is a crystal glass and in front is a red color flower which is called a particular flower japa. Now that flower is in front of crystal glass. Now crystal glass which was colorless has acquired the red color of flower. Okay, this is simple. So what is happening is you have to see it as in typical functioning of our day-to-day life, our buddhi is now flower and your soul is like crystal glass. So our buddhi shows an image and it appears on crystal glass because that red color flower made the crystal glass become red, is it not? So in our day-to-day functioning, whatever is in the buddhi, our soul also acquires that. That is what is a common human being's functioning, is it not? So now he is emphasizing in this inward journey, your soul will not be functioning like that because that is the functioning for the gross objects. For now self realization, this functioning will be different. So he is negating that possibility. He is not saying what it is, but it is not like what is happening in our day to day functioning. So after meditation, he is trying to say, with our closed eyes, if you have on your chitta buddhi all kinds of images, that is not self realization because that is still like japa spatik mani kind of function, is it not? So that is a qualification he is trying to bring. And then he says, Dhyan, Dharana, Abhyas, Vairagya, etc. All this. So you will remember these are terms in Patanjali Yoga. Vetti Sarupyam Itayat, then Abhyas, Vairagya, Abhyam, Tannayodha. That's what Patanjali has said in chapter 1. Abhyas is practice, Vairagya is announcement. Practice and announcement will help us get rid of modifications on chitta. So all these terms are there in Patanjali Yoga. They are coming from Kapil here. Then he says Dhyan and Dhar. I am translating these four terms: meditation, concentration, practice, and announcement. They will help subdue all these modifications that appear on buddhi. Finally, we want buddhi to have no modification, as if there is no flower. If there is no flower, crystal glass will be in its own form, colorless form, is it not? It will not show red color. And that will be me self realization. So, this was, I hope you see the structure of his last book. Now he's saying the nature of Vivek, which is what is the objective, is Vivekyati, which is nothing but discrimination of Prakriti and Purush, but in experiential mode. Now there are certain misunderstandings. He is trying to clarify it. Prakriti is the primary material cause and not Purush, because there is a misunderstanding that Purush itself becomes the material cause of the universe and so on and so forth. Or, there are two kinds of thinking. One is there is no Purush, only Prakriti. That's what is modern material science is telling us. Mainstream thinking in today's world is it's all material particles. They have danced in particular manner and have given rise to the sun, earth, and all that, including what is called consciousness. They are struggling to find consciousness, but ad hoc, this is what they are saying. This is their hypothesis. But this is what is de facto mainstream thinking today. There is only matter, and that's what gives rise to the colorful world. On other extreme, there are some people who will say there is only consciousness, only Atma. That itself goes through modifications, and that's why we see all kinds of modifications. So Kapil is parenthetically denying that possibility. Prakriti is primary material cause. This is what he's saying. And also there is a statement, and not Purush. Purush is not material cause. So in his philosophy, modifications are only in the material domain. Even only Buddhi has goes through modification, not Purush. So that is way. Then he wants to say, any such wrong notion cannot lead to Vivek. If you have such a idea, if your hypothesis is like this, you are not likely to reach self-realization or the Vivek that he is talking about. Because you are in your mind so much engulfed with that there is no Prakriti, only Purush. Then where is discriminatory knowledge? Is it not? So he is denying that. You have to, and then he is saying Prakriti is omnipresent. As its effects seen everywhere. You see stars and galaxies. It's unbounded. So that way, Prakriti is everywhere, what is called Vibhu. And of course, we have seen Prakriti has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, etc. Again, he is clarifying or making it, strengthening that Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they are not its characteristics, but they are inherent with it, what is called Swarup. So Prakriti is inherently in the modes of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. They are three in one. It is not that they are its characteristics. This is philosophical term, which I have tried to explain with Purush, the source in inherently consciousness. So in the fifth chapter, last slide, we were discussing that. What is it? Prakriti is Sat Roop. Purush is Sat and Chit Roop. And Ishwa is Sat Chit Anand Swaroop. So these are called Swarup. This is inherent characters. So in their philosophical term, a thing has certain attributes. So thing and attributes are two different things. But if attribute itself is the thing, that is what they are talking about. Difficult concept to understand, but that's what it is. What else can I do? Sorry, I cannot explain it better, but I am doing my job as well as possible. Now, talking about Purush, ab initio he says the universe exists for it, not universe, the outside world, even Buddhi and all those, these are also part of universe. And then he says, just like camel carries saffron. This example was given earlier. Camel himself doesn't eat, he enjoys saffron. So as if this is Prakriti, Prakriti does all this work, carries the workload for somebody who is conscious, who will enjoy it. So camel is here representative of Prakriti. Saffron will be experienced by Purush. And of course, there is another Purush, that infinite, who has loaded saffron on the back of the camel. So, if you look at a metaphor carefully, properly selected, you will have to. So, camel carries a load, and somebody has loaded it. So, these things are very meaningful here. Now, the instruments are not required for liberated, and of course, this Purush, when he is in liberated form, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need to saffron. So these instruments are not required for liberation. And there are multiple of them, because at a given time one is liberated, another is not liberated. And this is also its inherent consciousness, just like Sattva Tamasa inherently Prakriti, this is also inherent consciousness. It is not its characteristics. Then a question is raised, why Vedas say it in very often that all this is He, that Atma. All the universe is He. I am Atma Jagat. There are such statements. Then he's saying this is merely to encourage bonded souls, like we are the mortal human beings here, to seek an announcement. The idea is, if I glorify Ishwar in the world, oh, this is so beautiful world. But we say, this is Ishwar is so beautiful. Then this is to encourage a common human being to seek out Ishwar rather than get lost into the beautiful world. Is it not? So these statements are in this nature. Of course, the world is made of matter, made by Ishwar. You can sure admire that wonderful artist who the Ishwar is. And when we do it, sometimes it becomes exaggeration. Because if you look at an art, there are two things. The artist has his artistic skill, and also the material that has gone into the art. But sometimes there is an exaggeration that we appreciate the artist and not other material contents. But that is also not a wrong statement, but it is not whole truth. And that happens in the Vedas also. So Kapil is saying, whenever such a statement arises, it has a purpose. Purpose is to encourage bonded souls to seek announcement. Announcement is to get away from material modifications. So even in the outside world, these are also material modifications. If we try to disconnect from it, that will be a journey in that direction. The last slide, in the last 5 minutes, is trying to make some philosophical statements which are very important, but I am trying to minimize them. But I will point out at one point, because that's where a lot of misunderstanding is there about ahankar and so on and so forth. And of course, I emphasize at many points that I have a correct understanding about ahankar, and most of the authors have failed here. Ahankar, I take it as my storage device, while others translate as ego. So that part I have an occasion here, and I must say my interpretation is correct, and it is very much, very clearly supported by Kapil here in these statements that are coming here. So let's look at this slide. Universe is, what he's saying is, universe is not illusion. So this whole philosophy is called as Satkaya Vad. Kaya is an effect, Karan is a cause, and if something has come out as an effect, it is real based on a real cause. So then an example is given like an illusion of an snake out of rope. So somebody says, or like our dreams. Dreams are unreal, but if you will think hard, all the contents of the dream are real. They have just been haphazardly put together in a wrong matrix, but individual contents, individual elements of a dream are quite real, is it not? So that's what he's saying. Maybe in the night, dark night, that is a rope mistaken as a snake, but snake does exist in the world. Otherwise, why would somebody think of snake at that point? If snake was non-existent, he would never think of snake at all, isn't it? You never think of something which is non-existent, as simple as that. Even what we imagine is something which is we are aware of. You cannot quite imagine something which is unimaginable, is it not? So we are not getting into this philosophy much, but what he's saying is the world as it exists is not an illusion, and we have discussed it at length. If it was illusion, somebody will say, I say this is a chair, somebody will say this is a table, somebody will say this is that, this is that. But if all of us agree this is a chair, it means this is not an illusion, is it not? So there are several arguments that the universe that exists is not an illusion. And what are we doing here? We are basically acting upon, now this is a, how are we interacting with the in the world? So we act upon the world, which that is called karma. We are performing some karma, and we gain experience. Experience is bhog actually. So this bhog and karma is going on. So that is what he is now talking about. The doer, who exactly is performing the action. This is brilliance of Kapil. He is not saying Purush is the doer. He is saying Ahankara is the agent to perform karma. The statement is Ahankara karta na Purusha. This is statement 54, 6th chapter. Very powerful statement, and I will use one of them. One more. It is, yeah, which will come later. Yeah, it is coming later, 64. I will bring that out. Let's go step by step. To perform karma is ahankar and not purush. But this ahankar is integrated with purush. So this is a purush who is a bonded purush. He has instruments of buddhi, ahankar, and so on. The total 13 instruments. And then he is performing an action. Now, action is not performed by push, but by ahankar. But that ahankar is not an isolated instrument. It is not a car without a driver. It is a car moving, but car moving which is being driven by a human driver. Something like that. So this is very important because sometimes once we have done the repeated practice, then like I have given an example, we are discussing something with a friend of ours and we are walking also. So you as an individual, as a Purush, you are consciously engaged in discussion. But now the question is who is walking? At that point, the walking is being done on your behalf by Ahankar. Ahankar is making your feet move while your buddhi and you, the Purush, are engaged in discussion. Or you are in deep sleep, but you change your body, moves from place A to B. You are sleeping, is it not? If somebody asks you next morning, why did you move from here to there, or you change your sides, you will say, I didn't do it. It happened unconsciously. Who did it? Somebody did it. Then you will say, Ahankar did it. Which is where all the movements are stored and he is able to activate the manas and the motor organs. Okay. Technical matter, but I just want you to be aware of it. Now this is Bhog, the all kinds of experiences of Sukh and Dukh, joy and pain. This is felt by Purush. And here he has made another statement. Such things happen because this is due to my karma. My karma being evolved. Sorry, I am exceeding time. Few more minutes. I am performing karma, it being evolved, sukh and dukh, and that is felt by me at the it is brought to me by buddhi and felt by me. So this is bhog is experienced by purush. And then he says, this is even that particular soul may be on some other planets, not necessarily on the earth. This is an interesting statement, as if human beings may be living on other planets also. But he is saying even there, the Purush will have the similar instruments to go through the same kind of bhog. But the gross body, our visible gross body, is never created without a presiding soul. Unless there is a resident presiding entity, the gross body is not created. Now I'm going slightly fast. Soul with buddhi, ahankar, etc., these inner instruments, is a conscious living being, what is called Jeev. So Jeev is a technical term in our philosophy. So Jeev is what? The soul integrated with buddhi, ahankar, etc., performs the karma. I am bonded because of my karma. So who performed the karma? All these issues are raised here. And these karma which I have performed are not performed by Ishwar. So this is not by Ishwar. So that was a statement, I think 64. Powerful statement. Ahankar katya adhina kaya siddhi na ishvaya adhin apamana bhavat abhavat. So the statement is that these are my karma and that I cannot say God did it. This is my karma. Now he is concluding the book by saying there is a lot of interpretation of why I got bonded with an inner instrument and gospel. Because his book is talking about liberation, which of course has to be analyzed properly. Then why at the first I came together with this, I got connected with Prakrit. Saying that there can be different interpretation. For example, that was the cause of my bondage. Perform certain karma to be rewarded, so I have to have buddhi to go through the sukh and dukh. Somebody will say, another scholar, philosopher is saying, it is avivek. Absence of vivek, I find myself with buddhi. Somebody will say, I had these subtle instruments in the past. That's why I did karma and I have reward. Now I have to taste the reward. I have to have subtle instruments again. So, these are cyclic and it's very difficult to find. All them can be true. They are probably difference only in semantics. Whatever it is, then Kapil is ending the book with what we want is this bonding to end, whatever its cause could be, because nobody can know exact, because this is something beyond us, probably, like nobody can know Prakiti exactly. So it is something of that nature, but liberation is a worthy effort, the Atyant Purusharth. Sorry, I exceeded 7 minutes. I enjoyed teaching this 13 sessions on introduction to Sankhya. Tried my best. I hope it makes sense to you, and thank you all for joining. See you sometime in future. See you sometime later. All the best.